This is One-on-One. One of the best communicators and coaches in the field you ever find. Patricia Stark is a good friend. She's an author, communication expert, and professional development coach and trainer. Good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you, Steve, as always.
You and I have been talking about communication for a long time.
Yes.
And we also worked together at another network at a different time in our lives.
Yes, we did.
When did you become fascinated by how we communicate, how we don't communicate, and how you feel how you knew you were able to help them?
Well, I think being a reformed, shy person from a very young age, which because of what I do for a living, people don't usually believe that, but it is true. And knowing how nerve-wracking and disabling it can be to not be able to communicate confidently and trust yourself.
You said disabling.
Yeah,
Did you
it
mean
really
to say
is.
that?
Yeah, it makes you feel frozen and not able to achieve and accomplish a lot of goals, a lot of things in your life, including relationships, your career, your future, so many things. And when I was working in broadcasting and then started transitioning to doing my coaching and training, I found that the underlying thread that runs through all of the things that I was helping people do through trying to coach them through public speaking or media training or interview skills was that you need to find this thread of calm confidence. And that's how I came up with the term confidence, which helped me to write my book. And I weave that into all of my training now, because the way that we communicate internally, the story we tell ourselves, completely affects our ability to communicate outwardly to others.
You know, sometimes I think there's this group of us who are obsessed by communication who sometimes get so close to it because we do it for a living, and we don't appreciate the anxiety, the fear, all the other insecurities and things that go along with it, but they're very real.
Yes.
And here's the thing I'm curious about. You and I were just talking before we got on the air, and in my coaching, I do a lot of coaching in the field, and Patricia and I have consulted in other situations and talked about certain clients and shared our approaches. I'll say to someone, come in with a 3-minute presentation on something that really matters to you. It's a corporate situation, whatever it is, institutional higher learning, whatever it is. They'll come in with a speech, and they'll read the speech. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, no, just tell me why this is so important. No, I need my speech. And then when I take it away, they'll say, quote, I'm uncomfortable.
Yes.
And without belaboring them, I'll just say, your job is to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Exactly. You say?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it's simply because no one has ever shown them a better way. We're used to thinking, I got to write out my speech and I got to deliver my speech. Where
don't we learn that in school sometimes?
We do learn that in school, and it's incorrect because what we really need to be doing is having a human conversation with other human beings.
Devil's advocate. Someone says, Steve, you don't understand. It's a speech. It's a formal speech. It's not that.
Yeah.
And we say?
I say it should not be a formal speech. It should be a human conversation, always. I don't care what you're talking about. People don't want to be spoken at and
lectured
spewed information
to.
out. Right. There's only 2 ways to give people information. You can either push it out at them or pull them in with stories and pull them in with being human and being relatable.
Engage them.
You can't do that if you're just reading words off of your page.
You know, it's interesting. I've watched the video of your work in the studio you work in when you're coaching people. You really do get people out there outside their comfort zone and doing it. And I'm a big believer doing it and doing it again. And all of a sudden, like your son plays baseball, our sons play baseball. I'm uncomfortable. Get up at bat a few times. You still may be nervous, but what?
Yes. Well, a good psychologist friend of mine told me, just because you're nervous doesn't mean you're not going to do a good job. And that, I thought, was brilliant, because everybody thinks I shouldn't be nervous. If I'm prepared, if I'm really good at what I do, I shouldn't be nervous. No, being nervous means that you care. It means that everything is ready to be firing on all 8. You are where you need to be. Think of launching a rocket ship. Everything that has to happen, right, combustion-wise, explode. You know.
I bet you some people are nervous out of NASA.
Yeah, well, hopefully they
right.
are. But I tell people, just be courageous for 20 seconds. Because if you get out there, usually in the first 30 seconds to a minute, you know, everything starts to kind of settle and you find your footing. Because in the beginning, it can feel like an out-of-body experience. But do what you can to desensitize yourself to the situation. Feel the fear and do it anyway, as there's a famous book that says that.
That's right.
But the more you avoid, the worse it gets. And then procrastination is the biggest confidence killer that's out there.
Yeah. Try this, because we're also going to use this interview on a podcast and radio show we do called The Leadership Hour. the connection between being a great leader and having to be a really solid communicator is?
I think that, and I know we've talked about this in another interview, the best communicators are the best listeners. And a leader really listens and really wants open lines of communication, and they want it to be a two-way street. Open door policies we've heard of, really the best. So you can't be a good leader without being a good communicator.
Push back. Someone says, oh, you mean someone being a great public speaker?
No. No, I think, first of all, unless you're just talking to yourself in private, everybody is a public speaker. But we just put this thing on it from hearing about people having public speaking fear. And maybe I call it a fear, it's like a side effect fear of maybe you were speaking one time when you were going through puberty. Maybe it was at the funeral of a loved one. Maybe something was just happening in your life where you broke up with somebody or got divorced or whatever, and now you have to speak, and it goes badly.
By the way, stay
now
right there.
You associate it with speaking.
Sorry for interrupting while we're talking about listening.
Sure.
I remember I had a client one time who was very afraid, 50-year-old guy, wanted to be president of a bank, freaking out and about speaking. And I said, but you're one of the top people in your field. Why is it? And I'm talking to him privately, and he said, Steve, when I was 14, I was running for student body president or class president. I had these index cards. I dropped the cards, and when they dropped them on the floor, I had to pick them up, and everyone was laughing.
And he's carrying that around like luggage.
He's 52 years old. He was 14 years old, and he can't.
He can't let it go.
You hear that all the time.
Absolutely. He can't let it go. I've had psychologists that I've consulted with, because I'm not one and I want to guide a client well, tell me that they've literally had to go through some kind of like a hypnosis with clients to get them to say goodbye to that childhood person in them, to say goodbye to that little girl or little boy that had that experience in your mind and physically let it go.
But you also help them do that. Real quick, before I let you go, a couple ways to get more calm and confident in the same time?
Well, there's so many,
Give us a
but
couple.
one thing is to picture your mind like a shaken snow globe. We're all juggling 8 million things, and we feel like we're not walking around with clarity. Just for 30 seconds at the water cooler or behind a closed door, watch your mind settle to where you can see all of that settle, and then walk into a situation with a clear mind. Deep breathing exercises, we hear that, but it's not in when someone says, you're nervous, take a deep breath. It's in the release of that. Breathe and then let it all out. There's so many things in my book of the same name, Confidence, that will be published soon, that are all kind of exercises to help you get clarity, calm of body, mind, and spirit. The list goes on.
Every time our friend Patricia Stark joins us, I learn something new about communication and leadership and everything connected to that as well. I hope you did as well. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Well done. Stay
Always
right
a
there.
pleasure.
This is One on One. I'm Steve Adubato. I'll be right back. Thank you.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 30 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Turl Fund, supporting right from the start NJ, Atlantic Health System, NJM Insurance Group, Summit Medical Group, New Jersey Resources, PNC Bank. And by Suez, transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.